And we are live for an exciting episode of First Strike. Before we start, so our plug our sponsor, FaceFaceGames.com, the number one place to get your Magic the Gathering singles. This week's weekly deal is 10% off all promos, whether they're foil or non-foil. So go to FaceFaceGames.com to take advantage of that deal. And as always, follow their Facebook page because that's where you can join a free giveaway. We're giving away $50 store credit every week to just someone who randomly leaves a comment. And there's been multiple repeat winners, so definitely get your name in the comments section. We got the full house tonight. We got this week. We got the first Mythic Championship in Cleveland. We got one of our very own getting prepped up, and seems to be following the same path as one of my best friends in Magic, Alex Hayne, who was number one for a while, was a proponent for Mono Blue, even helped one of my friends, someone that was, I didn't know he played Magic at the time. His HH is what I call him. He was my university colleague. We even had a group project together. But he managed to qualify for London this past weekend with Mono Blue. But to continue, Alex was number one, fell to number two, went back to number one, kept regaining number one. But today, just no luck with the deck, kept switching, and kept losing. I had a losing record with every deck he tried. Ended up falling on Gruul from what I've heard. And let's go straight to you, Elliot. I guess similar experience with Mono Blue.
Yeah, I played Mono Blue in the RPTQ. I think I hyped it up last week as well, and I ended up going 4-2 for 11th place. It was just like a clean cut to top 8, so no like bad beats. And I was really confident with the deck. I was like 4-1ing consistently every single league I played. And then, I was talking to some of the people I was preparing with. They were pretty hyped for Mono Blue. They were having similar good results. And then all of a sudden, I got home from work today. I started joining Moto queues, and I went 1-9. And then, I hopped in Discord with my friends, and Kale, I'm like complaining to them nonstop about how all of a sudden I have no idea what to do. And Kale's like, I don't think you should play Mono Blue. I think the deck's garbage. So now here I am. My flight leaves in the morning. I have close to no idea what I'm going to play for the Pro Tour. I'm currently in a league with Sultai, and that's sort of my front runner right now. But basically my analysis is that Mono Blue sort of just, well, obviously Mono Blue is the level 0 deck. It's known quantity. It won the SCG 2 weeks ago. It's, been doing well after that. And it's sort of gotten to the point where people have put something like, 5, 6 plus sideboard cards in their decks just to beat Mono Blue. You have people with like 4 Crawl Harpooners plus more in their sideboard. People are playing like Atsakan Archer, just like everything, Sagittarius's Volley, all these like relatively unplayable cards that are just like poo-poo on Mono Blue. And it's a very powerful deck, but I don't think it can overcome just the sheer amount of hate that's being pointed towards it. And that's not to say I'm like 0% to play it, because I do have a lot of reps with the deck. I have a list that I was like, very comfortable with up until 24 hours ago. So basically my position is play everything but Mono Blue until I'm comfortable, and if I can't, then I'm playing Terra Manners and Siren Storm Tamers.
Are you actually feeling that in the games themselves that you're playing, that you're doing okay main deck, but you're getting completely slaughtered post board?
A little bit. Like, I did play against a couple decks that were playing main deck Crawler Harpooner, so the hate's sort of bleeding over to the main deck. A lot more people playing decks with things like Carnival Carnage, which is effective as well. But the big thing about the Mono Blue deck that I found when I was playing it, even before now, was that you'd sometimes win by like assembling the combo of unblockable creature / flying creature plus obsession. But you didn't have like a very streamlined deck in game one outside of doing your aggressive plan and countering everything. So, if you were on the draw and your opponent had a particularly aggressive draw or a particularly removal heavy draw that lined up well against yours, you would lose a lot of the game ones. I don't want to say like a percentage and look like an idiot, but some of the times Terramander costs 6 mana to activate and all your creatures are being killed. And then the big thing about mono blue is that you had like a sideboard of really refined counter spells. You had things like entrancing melodies that were really powerful in some matchups, and I found that I had a really high percentage in sideboard games. And even when people were playing a couple copies of Crawl Harpooner, a couple copies of Crushing Canopy, those kind of cards, and it's just now that they've reached the critical mass, instead of winning a lot of my sideboard games, I'm maybe like losing a little bit more than half of my main deck games, which is not too far off from what I was before. But now, rather than winning most of my sideboard games, I'm losing. So I had like a lot of 2-1 victories before, and now a lot of 0-2 and 1-2 losses now. So I think it's and the really sad part is I don't think there's like any way for the mono blue deck to really innovate. Like I've looked on Scryfall and filtered for blue cards a billion times with varying filters, looking for things that are hopefully better than Surge Mare for decks you need to block against and stuff like that. But I just don't know if it's there. And I had someone play like 2 Lightning Mares against me in a single game that kicked my teeth in. So yeah, not excited for mono blue.
Okay, so let's talk to your good buddy Andy here, who's what's your advice to your poor helpless friend?
Well, I play a lot of standard. I play actually just a ridiculous amount of standard, just trying to figure out what the best deck is, not just for Elliot, but just kind of I like to explore new standards. So I've been playing a lot. And what kept like a thing that kept going through my mind is like I want a deck that like can beat aggro decks, and post board can just have the 1 or 2 counter spells you need to beat like the control decks and the wilderness reclamation decks. And I tried to like think of all different kind of combinations. I thought Krasis was the best card in the format, so I was like, I want to play that. And it all just came back around to just Sultai being the best deck because it can always do that. So it gets to play Wild Growth Walker, which is the best it's probably ever been right now, like at this exact moment. Mono Blue can't race Wild Growth Walker. Mono Blue or like Mono White can get brickwalled by it very fast, even if you don't evolve it. And like Mono Red, which kind of preys on the other 2 aggro decks a little bit. I'm not even sure how favored it is, but it is known to prey on those decks, is also a little soft to Wild Growth Walker. I think the only deck it's bad against is like Esper Control, which is a matchup I think you're kind of okay giving up a lot of pre-board equity to be very good against it post-board. So I decided that I think Sultai is the best deck for this tournament because I think Wild Growth Walker is one of the best cards. Krasis is one of the best cards. And now that everyone knows that Mono Blue is so good, everyone's deck is built a little different. Like week 1 Mono Blue or week 2 Mono Blue, when it started picking up traction, there was Sultai lists with just 2 main deck 2-mana removals. Now it plays like 3 to 4. And it plays a couple of, what's it called? The Pirate Steel guy, Hostage Shaker, which is so good against Mono Blue because getting to even just play a flyer after is just devastating. And Krasis is very good. Even Vivian Reed can help with some cleanup. So I think Sultai is the best deck. And what I noticed when I was playing Mono Blue is that even when I had my nut draws, sometimes I would just get outraced and I would die. Like my clock was still not that good when I was going off. It was still very short. It's just that I had a lot of extra cards. But if my cards were like Spell Pierces and Dive Downs, and then my opponent's just playing a bunch of creatures, I'm gonna die. And so that's kind of how I felt about Mono Blue. And like now that people are getting even more hateful in the main deck and super hateful in the sideboard, it's just, do I want to be this very linear deck with a huge target on its head that like you can see the easy avenues to target it, and that's what Mono Blue sort of is. It's targetable. When like there's some decks that are hard to target, Mono Blue very easy to target, and I think that's not what I would want to play this weekend, despite thinking that it was the best deck maybe a full week ago.
Any pushback from you, Elliot? Like, is there a reason why you wouldn't play Sultai?
Well, as I said, I'm currently in a league with it. So, and even going back to last week when I was having a lot of success with Mono Blue, Sultai was my backup, and I have it and Mono Blue sleeved up in paper in my suitcase right now. So I'm definitely agreeing with a lot of things that Andy was saying. and you know, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to tune like a mid-range deck in, you know, the couple hours I have before I have to go to sleep, and then the 5 or 6 hours I'll have to test in Cleveland. But you know, I think a list that Andy and I had been working on even last week is looking pretty good right now. You know, I tossed in a couple more Crawl Harpooners for the mono blue matchup because, you know, even though I don't think that deck is where I want to be, I think that a lot of people are going to be playing it. So it's definitely something that I'll have to keep in mind at the Pro Tour or at the Mythic Championship. And yeah, I mean, I think Eddie hit the nail on the head where, you know, you can build this Sultai deck to just be so good against the aggressive decks. And because of the format is relatively wide open, but sort of funneled towards the aggressive and mid-range, and even like sort of in between those two archetypes, just such a small percentage of the meta is going to be, you know, decks that cast down doesn't do anything against. And you know, in the Sultai colors, you know, you're going to be losing a lot of the games against the decks that cast down does 0 against. But I'm gonna bring in a pile of duresses and a pile of negates, and even against a control deck, how bad can you be when you have Hydroid Crassus in your deck? Because the Esper deck has no way to win the game except for Teferi Emblem game 1. So a lot of the games, even where they're, you know, have a crushing advantage, if they can't find a Teferi or can't protect it for long, you're gonna have time to draw out of it and play a large Hydroid Crassus. So I think the Sultai deck is definitely what I'm looking to play. Definitely. Probably my top choice at this point. And again, where if it's I can't get it to a point where I'm happy, I'm probably going to default to mono blue and cross my fingers.
Before we get to our resident underground dojo expert, any thoughts on mono white, Elliot?
So mono white, I mentioned Kale told me that mono blue is unplayable right at the perfect time, right 24 hours before the deadline. So thanks, Kale. The deck he was sort of pushing for me to play was mono white. And you know, the mono white deck didn't get any upgrades. You know, Unbreakable Formation's good, but it's not major in terms of how the games play out. And it was a deck that I had a little bit of experience with last format, and I've played it a bit again this format as well with the new card. And I just find that you have to draw a specific sequence of cards. You have to draw, you know, to function, you have to play 3 to 4 1-drops and then a Lord every single game. And you have no ways in your deck to draw additional cards. The only way you can sort of outgrind your opponent or win long games is get extremely lucky or have an Adonto, which you know, there's 4 Adontos. It's relatively easy to flip, so it's not like you're a 0% on games that go long. But you know, a single point of interaction like a Kaya's Wrath, Cry of the Carnarium, and you're stonewalled. A single Wild Growth Walker into a Jade Light, and you're stonewalled. Your removal is pretty light in the main deck. It's Conclave Tribunal, so you're gonna have to be taking pretty much a whole turn off attacking in order to cast it a lot of the time. So it's just something I'm not really attracted to. I'm not a big fan of decks that only draw 1 card a turn and have to hope that that's the right card. That's why I was partially drawn to mono blue in the first place, is because you had Curious Obsession and Opt to filter your draws. The Sultai deck has the Explorer creatures, obviously.
Okay, John, let's go straight to you because it's your baby. How do you feel about Elliot talking shit about your deck?
You know, the whole reason I picked white was because I thought it had a pretty lopsided, quote unquote, matchup against the mono blue and the Drake's matchups. And in fact, I did release a plan that was blue white, but the night before I made a audible to mono white and cut all the 2 drops because I didn't expect a lot of Nexus decks and Esper decks, and in the Seattle area at least, I thought I would have a lot of monocolored decks and Drakes. But I did play Drakes. I did play against 2 blue decks, and I lost once to both of them. And between the online games and the matches at the RPTQ, like, I feel like the amount that it's favored against those decks, the decks that you're trying to prey upon, I think it's a bit overstated. And there was a surprising amount of matches against Mono Blue where they can. It's kind of understated how fast they can turn the corner between having the Curious Obsession flyer and just Jin's like just turning the corner and like clocking you in 2 turns and whatnot. Where if you don't really have your nut draws where you curving to turn 3 Dumbo and turn 4 Lord and whatnot, like you're just gonna lose. Like in the RPTQ, I had a curve where I turn 3 cast Loxodon, turn 4 Benalish Marshal, and I still lost on the play because of key counter spells and multiple Jins and whatnot, and Fleet post board. And Drake's in its current iteration, Drake's were something that Andrew Jessup and his SCG crew has been championing over the last few weeks. They have 8 spot removals main deck. They have Shivan Fire and Entrancing Melody sideboard as well, so it's not that great as well. And then Sultai obviously is not that great with the Wild Growth Walker versions, and Esper is basically tuned to prey on or fight against aggro decks with multiple Moment of Cravings and Cry of the Carnarian, which you can never beat and all that. So looking back, I don't really regret the deck choice. I kind of question which white weenie deck is best between monocolored, 2 drops, no history, yes history, and just white weenie in general. I'm a bit skeptical of its place going to the Pro Tour, but what you guys said is correct, I think. On Mono Blue, there are decks like Rakdos, who's trying to remove everything that you play, or Gruul even, who's trying to just like play guys with keyword fat and just like run you over. Those decks are popping up, and Mono Blue is just more known quantity, and I don't think if I was playing the Pro Tour, I wouldn't play either blue or white right now.
Not sure if Kale's in the chat, but if Kale can chime in on some of the questions John asked about what specific mono white build that he would build, that would be cool. Derek, what would your mentality be heading into the PT? Like, do you think people are making the same adjustments, or are people not going to be on mono blue? It's it's easy to either over or underreact. So I wonder what your take would be.
I think that this format is very similar to the last format in that the archetypes are almost exactly the same. They sort of filled the same positioning, and you have these decks that sort of rise to the top and then get metagamed out. And I think that's simply because those decks just have a fundamental flaw. And so I think that, like the last Pro Tour, mono white or a mono white-esque deck will do well. And then if you look forward in a week or so, people will figure out a way to beat it. Such the trend with mono blue a couple of weeks ago. I think it was very predictable that mono blue was going to win the SCG. I think it was very predictable that mono blue would get hated out before the Pro Tour. I think all of these are very, very obvious trends. And I think that people, there's sort of this like disconnect between like what people are thinking and what's actually happening. And I think a lot of people are leveling themselves. I think if you just want to be comfortable with your deck choice, you should play Sultai. I think if you're very well versed in the standard format, you understand a deck and through its ins and outs and how to sideboard perfectly and how to build it for each specific card and what cards in the matchup you need, then you should play you should play blue white. You should play Esper. You should play Control, sort of thing. Like last format, I was trying to figure out the best way to build green black every single week. If you were doing that with any deck in the format other than Sultai, you should play that deck. Otherwise, I think autoballing the Sultai is probably just your best choice. For raw power level, those cards are there. It's but it definitely also has a target on its back, so you have to be careful. Like I think the blue-white decks are good, but like Elliot said, you need to curve out well. And I think the mono blue decks are in the past, and the red-green decks are neat, but they're still just not really good against multiple Chupacabras and Vraska's Contempts. To me, Esper is also just not good enough. So I'd probably play Sultai.
We're speculating that our frequent guest Edgar Magalhaes and Team Face to Face is likely with Shaheen, Gabriel Nassif, and the fact that Edgar tweeted that he crushed the tournament with Esper. Derek, we're expecting them to probably land on some Esper concoction, right?
I assume so. If I had to guess, I would be surprised if they didn't. I know Edgar has been playing an Esper deck the entire format. I think he started with mid-range, moved over control, and then, like, as you saw, he tweeted about it. I also know that's like his play style. I think he's more of a, like, I'm extremely mid-range. Some people are extremely aggro. Some people are extremely, like, underground combo, I guess you could call it. I think Edgar is sort of controlling Esper kind of play style. And obviously, most of his teammates are also.
So, with I guess 24 hours left to go, let's hope, Elliot, you come up with the perfect Sultai list, and maybe Andy can lend some of his insane amount of standard experience to help you perfect the list.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm gonna go jump back into the leagues. Have a good one.
All right. Talk to you later, Elliot. Right. So, Andy, do you think there's any specific cards maybe in the sideboard that you think he should be packing?
Cry of the Carnarium, I think, is very good right now. I think it's like pretty good against mono blue, and it's just bananas against mono white. And mono white, a lot of their fast draws, it's super hard to keep up with it with just removal. And sometimes your creatures don't matter if it's not Wild Growth Walker until like Jade Light. So I think that card is pretty important right now, and I think it's a card that I would definitely include in my sideboard just because of how good it is in those matchups. And the reason I mentioned that card is I see a lot of lists just don't have it, and I thought it was like pretty slam dunk, at least two of to me, but I could be wrong. I just think it's very good right now.
All right, we had some hugs on the line, I think, at a particular PT. Derek, would you have any predictions of what you expect to make up the top 8? I know with draft and everything, it's not representative of what is going to do well in standard, but just a guess.
I would not be surprised if there was like a blue, white, white, red sort of concentration in the top 8. I don't know if it's like 6 copies or like last time, or if it's 3 copies. But I would like probably think like 3 white weenie builds, 2 Sultai, 2 Esper, and then like maybe 1 mono blue and maybe 1 blue red Drakes. I know at the last PT, it's Pascal Vieira, the guy who's like been tearing up the sealed GPs. He built a blue-red Drake's deck with the Mirari Conjecture is the card, and it sort of like took the format by storm for like up until GP Milwaukee, because it sort of shifted the way that people were viewing the deck. I would not be surprised if somebody like him or another player, maybe Sam Black, tuned a deck to sort of like pick a spot in the metagame, and that deck showed up a bit. He didn't make top 8, but he 9-0'd with the blue-red deck. So I definitely think it'll be like mostly white weenie and mostly Sultai, but there might be a sprinkle of other decks in the format. This format's great still. I still think like there's nothing too oppressive, nothing that can't be beat, and nothing that's really a terrible choice, but it's all about reading the meta. So I assume the top 8 will also show that.
Derek, I didn't hear you mention Nexus, which was what Corey Baumeister and some of his team's been discussing. So if you're making the stance that Nexus isn't going to be there, then what about a deck like Jody Keith, like Rakdos deck, where you have infinite removals for the format, you can go over the top, it can probably never beat Nexus, but if you're making that bet, then what about something like Black Red?
I'm going to be honest and say I totally forgot about the fact that Nexus was in the format. It's not that I don't think it won't make top 8. It might. I mean, if I had to make a statement about the card, I think that the deck is not as powerful as people think. And on a Pro Tour setting, it's even worse because people will be making less mistakes against it. And it's sort of like the mono blue deck, but on the different end of the spectrum. And it's not an aggro deck; it's a combo deck, but it's easier to dismantle. I think there's a lot of hate on the Nexus decks because the majority of people hating on it come from the more casual or on like the more green side, I guess you could say, of Magic, where they don't exactly understand how to beat these cards, right? Where if you look at the Pro Tour level players, they could understand that 4 duress plus a quick clock or a good tempo sequencing or specific cards to beat the deck will do it. As for Jody Keith's deck, I think that deck is a flash in the pan, although very powerful. I don't think it's anything revolutionary. That deck existed last format without like the new cards, obviously, and it was just sort of a grindy deck. It was always sort of there. It just people didn't really play it because it wasn't the best grindy deck in the format. To me, the deck is good, and it's obviously tuned to beat, I think, Sultai and Mono Blue, but I don't actually know if they can get out from underneath a control lock or if they can beat a deck when they're behind. So to me, that's an issue. But I could also just be misevaluating this deck entirely. To me, I just think it was a good weekend for that deck, and that's about it.
Right. Derek, have you been grinding on Arena still? I don't know. I saw you on streaming on and off. I don't know how your schedule is.
I'm trying to stay away from the Arena grind because I have a couple of personal issues with the whole system itself, along with the whole function of playing Arena and Nexus being in the format, and that there's no secondary market, along with that the way the ladder works, I think it breeds really unhealthy play patterns and is actually awful for people who are trying to reach that goal. And as somebody who's been grinding this for a while, I've been deep in that feeling before, and I just don't want to get sort of caught up in that sort of like loss of time and effort that goes along with that. So I haven't really been playing Arena. I've been watching a lot of Standard and trying to keep up with it. Just because I think this format will be relative to the next format, and I like competitive Magic, so I want to be able to follow along at the PT. But I haven't really been playing Standard that much. I find this format is, like I said, very similar to the last format and rather boring. So because I have no real reason to play, I haven't really been.
I'm just seeing Alex fall way out of the top 8 now after holding on top spot for as long as he could. Just seems, it seems really, really hard. It's finally sinking into me how hard it is to get one of those 8 spots.
When I was grinding it for a bit last season, it took me about I want to say 5 full days of me just grinding completely with green black to get to Mythic. And then 2 more days I was at number 4. And I'm like, okay, this is easy, whatever. I was like, maybe I can get to number 1. And I think it was Thiago Saporito was number 1 at the time. I played against him, fell to number 5, played against somebody else, fell to number 20, played against somebody else, fell to 60. I'm like, why am I doing this? This is just not worth my time, not worth my effort. Not only is there no reason for me to do this, but it's just so polarizing, and I can't get behind doing this.
Does one loss really sink you that much?
It's elo based, so in theory, yes. You can watch streamers do it, and they'll start the day at 15 or whatever, and they'll end the day at 100 plus. That's happened to me in a 20 match span where I've gone, I don't know, 10 and 10 or something, and you drop 80 points. Because it depends on who you lose against, it depends on who you beat, right? But you don't always know. We don't know exactly how the elo works, and if you like beat, so like if you lose this, let's say you're at 2,000 elo, if you lose to somebody at 1,800, you drop a lot. If you beat somebody at 1,800, you maybe gain a tenth of what you would drop or something. Like, I don't know the actual percentage, but like the margins are drastically different. So like for you to grind all the way to the top is just like your win percentage has to be 80 plus. And then if you just like take one loss at the wrong time to the wrong person, it's just gone. And like KYT said with Haney, like he was number one for, I want to say, a week, and now he's not, right? So there's something wrong with the system, obviously, right? I don't know if there's a better way to do it. I would argue that Haynes one of the better players grinding standard right now. I don't think that top 8 is a good metric on how to decide. So
call me a skeptic here, but there's got to be some sort of like behind under the table win trading or some sort of way to game the system, because like the stakes are really high, right? Especially in the last few days. Like I feel like top 8's not going to be like legitimate top 8 players this season kind of thing. Like, am I wrong?
It's well, I want to say no, but I don't actually have any proof to your skepticism. If it's just really hard to quantify doing that, you know what I mean? Like in theory, if you played the entire month and you have a list of every Mythic player in top 100 and you sort of like work something out, like I'm sure there's a way to do it. Personally, I don't think it's worth it. I don't know if it would always work out that well. It might be trackable. Like there's so many holes in why it could happen that I don't know if win trading is a real thing. I think something that would be more realistic is you have multiple people logging into an account and grinding through the night, or playing 24 hours. But then you have to like, you could probably IP track them or whatever, right? Like I don't know if this happened when Hearthstone first cracked it open and did that sort of thing. This is my first time really interacting with a ladder, but I think personally it would be very difficult to do well or do it all or be worth your time. Maybe somebody can prove me wrong though. I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think it would be really hard.
Unless the logistics of that sound bananas and can't be worth it.
Yeah, like obviously the invite to the tournament, I think last place is like $7,500, but like what's it worth, right? I don't know. It's not worth it for me. And I grind a lot of Magic.
Yeah, the only sketchy thing that I could see like happening is the account sharing. The win trading I just don't think is going to happen or that realistic to happen, considering like opponents are random. Like what do you give this person when they concede to you? Like how do you quantify what they owe you? What if you come 9th anyway? Like
yeah, and like what happens if you run into a snitch? Like if you try to like compile enough names and do this, like what happens if somebody says something, right? Like I don't know, it seems not realistic.
Let's move away from this and go on to, I always ask you, Derek, I guess for this, your response to me has always been it's the same old, but it's one of the Reddit topics. It's the Magic Online announcements. And is it just the same old and it doesn't matter as ticket price has now, I'm just logging into MTGO traders and seeing they're now buying ticks at 81 cents. Has it just been like this, a downward trend? What's going on? Update me.
I didn't know it at, let me just Google this real quick. I didn't know it had dropped to 81. When I was selling to Card Hoarder, it was 85. Yeah, Card Hoarder is buying at 0.78. It definitely has been on a steady decline. And it's this weird thing with like, we're going to get into Magic economics and finance real quick. It's a real thing with finance in general, and this is what kind of caused the Great Depression, is when you have people scared of what's happening to their money, they all cash out. And I think this has also happened with Bitcoin recently. You sort of just have people just like selling as quickly as they can so they don't crash. But while they're doing this, they are creating a crash. So it's sort of like this circle. And in order to inflate the economy again, you have to have people buying in. But currently, people looking at this economy saying, why would I buy in when everything's crashing, right? So MTGO definitely has a purpose. And you can't play modern, legacy, or vintage anywhere else. And I don't think people realize that, like, that's a reason to have cards on Moto. I can't really justify it for other people though, because I guess it makes sense. If everything's crashing, you should sell. But at the same time, like, I don't see Moto going anywhere. I think it's taking a dip, but like, I don't know, like, why would you be afraid of it going anywhere when you have all these, like, Modern's still the most played format in the world. I don't know, like, Magic is not like just something you buy into. People play this game. It's tangible. The whole point of Magic is for it to be played. So purchasing cards has an actual use. It's not like food or something, right? Like, it doesn't go away. It's just like it'll still be there. I think it's a lot of people being afraid and trying to get out while they can, but I don't. It's just sewering everything else.
Andy, as the resident Sahili and KCI investor, is it time to jump in now? I guess, like, I buy Derek's point. I just don't see. I see this as still being the number one place to play Modern in a while. Modern's the most popular format in the world. Well, possibly outside of Commander. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this.
Like, if you're wanting to play test, it's a good time to buy into Moto. I would say that. I think Moto is still very good for playtesting. I use it all the time for playtesting. But like, obviously the economy's not what it used to be on Moto. It ain't what it used to be. You're no longer at 50% expected to get your EV back in competitive standard leagues. But I think that's okay. Like, the treasure chests, I remember me and Derek had this discussion a few months ago. I was telling him I was a little worried about the chests dipping so much, and he told me they would go back up, and they did for a little bit, but they didn't go back up as much as they used to, and then they went back down pretty fast, and now they haven't been above two ticks in almost 3 months, I think, which is, I can only assume this is the new normal, but I think that it is overall okay. I think Moto is going to be okay as what it is. It's not going to be as valuable as it once was. Like, you're going to spend less to buy in for decks for testing, so you could argue that it's going to be better for testing. You're going to get more value for your money, because if your goal is testing, but like, you're going to make less money off of Moto. And I know I myself have noticed that I'm making less money off of Moto, and I don't know. That's okay. Moto's like mostly for testing anyway, and it still does a good job at that. Arena's also great too.
I think that it's possible that going forward we have more businesses like mana traders maybe popping up as a possibility, because buying into Moto stock is so cheap. And I think mana traders also has a lot to do with why people are selling out. Because you don't, like, a legacy deck could be anywhere from 600 to 1,000 tickets. If you just cash that out and you just buy into mana traders, you could basically buy it for a full year. And then if you grind enough, you could, like, make your money back, so to speak. Because mana traders exist, we have an alternative. More people don't have to buy in, so it's much easier to sell out. So I think that it's possible that there may be more businesses popping up trying to combat, like, the monopoly that mana traders has, or stuff like that. But I don't actually see why you would want to buy into Moto right now, unless you just only want to play Modern. like maybe we get really lucky and in a couple years all the people that are playing standard on Arena find out that they love Magic like we all do because it's like a drug, and then they just buy into Modern because they like that format. It's more casual, or they buy into Legacy, or they buy into Vintage, which is probably like a little less likely than just buying into Modern. So like maybe down the road, if there's another Modern set, the price of Modern cards could go up again because there's a huge uptick in people playing Modern. But I don't know. As long as the prices are going down, I don't really know what to say.
Yeah, I never considered what Mana Trader's impact would be in the whole situation, and that's bizarre because I have like an 18-month streak of Mana Traders. I use it exclusively, and I sold out of Moto because of the viability of Mana Traders and the initial scare of Arena. So I just sold out, said, "Oh, I'll have Arena for like a year and a half on what I got, so whatever." And then honestly, the peace of mind you get from being able to just like switch decks, never have to worry about bannings, never even have to worry about prices of cards, and to get to test whatever you want so freely. Mana Traders, the service is like the best it's ever been, and especially when Moto is so good for exactly testing right now, it makes Mana Traders even more valuable, even though it like diminishes the value of its own assets in a way. At the same time, it creates more business for itself, more revenue. Finance.
I think almost every person I've talked to as a streamer, like when I would stream and I'd be like, okay, I have to buy a deck, I would get like 5 questions in chat, like, you don't use Mana Traders, or I'm like, no, like I just have all these tickets on my account, like this is what I do, and I just cycle through it, right? Like you take a 7-tick loss on a standard deck, whatever, like it's all mine still, right? It's actually worth it more for me to have these tickets on my account instead of spending money. But when you think about me compared to the average person playing Magic Online, that's not worth it. Like whatever, I think it's $60 a month or something is nothing just to like play 15 hours of Magic and not have to worry about the sunk costs, right? Like a lot of people are fine with that. You take a look at, like, this has been happening in paper. People are buying cards at vendors and then selling them back later just to play GPs or whatever. Like it's been happening in Magic for a while. Now you can just do it on Magic Online. I think Mana Traders has had a huge impact on this. Arena's had a huge impact, and Treasure Chests have had a huge impact. But I think Mana Traders has had probably the biggest.
I was checking some prices of decks, and interesting. Is it Phoenix for Modern still pretty expensive? Because Phoenixes are actually, at least according to Goldfish, 50 online, and
yeah, they're crazy. They're 50 tickets each, and I think it's because people said it's because people aren't opening packs.
Yeah, it happens. That's what happened with. It happens like with Scarab God. Like it happened with Scarab God. Happened with JVP. Happened with I think Elspeth Sun's Champion a couple years ago. Like you have a Mythic of the last format is now really good, or a Mythic from 2 formats ago is really good, and all the other cards in the pack are useless, and the set are useless. So people aren't drafting it. People aren't opening it. You have like this X number on Moto, and the bots are like, we can make money off this. And so they start doing that. Yeah, it's insane to me that they're 50 tickets. They're also like seeing play in every single format. They're seeing play in Legacy. They're seeing play in Modern. They're seeing probably less play in Standard than they are in the other 2 formats. So it's insane.
Now, I would love to see that card get broken out in Standard again like it did last time, but holy crap is that card good in Modern. And Legacy, I was super impressed with that black, or the Grixis, I think it was, Arclight Phoenix deck. I remember hearing about it, and I was like, I don't get how this works. And then I watched, I think the player just like Dark Ritual, Cabal Therapy his opponent, and then Cabal Therapy himself, naming Arclight, bringing them back, and then the next turn just sacking them to Cabal Therapy again, and just, I was like, holy crap, that's good.
Yeah, I thought the Modern deck was like a flash in the pan. I've watched a lot of people missequence their spells in person and still just absolutely crush people like it's nobody's business, because you just can't. There's only like a really small fail rate. You just kill people, and the deck's really impressed me. I think it's arguably one of the best decks in Modern right now.
I think it's got to be. Is Arclight has got to be the best deck. It's like extremely consistent because it's just full of cantrips, and it interacts, except with like spells. It interacts with creatures very well, and it's just very fast. What else could you possibly want?
I think it not only raised the price of Arclight Phoenix, but I think that deck also raised the price of Surgical Extraction, which is kind of weird, right? You don't really see a deck raise the price of a card that's good against it just because everybody's trying to beat it. So I think that's how good the deck is.
So
yeah.
Surgical is the best answer though, because it's so cheap, so free, and it just does exactly what you want. When I don't know about you, I hate bringing in cards like Rest in Peace and Leylines against decks that like don't need their graveyard, like really need it. So Surgical is just a perfect answer.
Yeah, no, I think the deck's good.
Yeah, Surgical was about 20 a few months ago, and now it's also climbing towards 50. John, how's the lab going? Are you is Electrodominance? Does it have a chance?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like it's a good sign that the modern 5.0 lists continually have multiple Electrodominance shells, like the Restore Balance one, or the Ask for Living End one, Kiki Jiki, Gristlebrand Goro's Vengeance. I've been working on one with the Ask for Living End and Hollow one as well. Just having instant speed, having the ability to go instant speed, 2 mana, Ancestral Vision, or Wrath Your Board, it's super powerful. So I think it's waiting to be broken right now. As it stands, I think that Phoenix certainly is a tier 1 deck. It's resilient to one form of hate, which is what I really like about it. It's like Hollow One. You can't just bring anger, you bring anger, Grimag and Hollow One's gonna beat you down. Oh, you bring Leyline of Void. Okay, well here's Adept and here's Hollow One. Phoenix has the same advantage of not folding completely to one form of hate, which is great. If I was gonna play a modern event, and there is a PTQ this Sunday, I might play it. I might just play Dredge or Hollow One actually, or for those who are lunatics out there, I think 4-color War is very good as well. Chalice and Bridge are at the best spot it's been in a while.
Yeah, I think 4-color War is a good place to be. If I just felt like we talked about this last episode. I just watched Jackson play against his opponents. I'm like, well, he's going to roll this matchup, I think, and sure enough, he made it all the way to the finals. John, where did you say you're seeing Electrodominance? Like it's doing well in online premieres or something?
No, like the 5.0 lists.
Okay.
From Wizards. I know it's like curated and it doesn't it doesn't indicate how many are 5.0ing, but at least it's showing that if it's on the list every time, people are iterating on it. People like Nassif and other prominent players have tested it and have been playing it multiple times. I think anytime you can shoot a mana, you got something going on here. And there was a very good show, in my opinion, last season before Spirits and Humans kind of fun policed it in the mono blue Living End shell. It goes right into it, and I think there's a lot of potential. Like you can splash like Mausoleum Secrets, and you have another tutor for a Living End or Surgical Extraction or Death Shadow or whatever bullet you want. It's like a lot of direction you can go into.
Did you say you mentioned it? It's also seen copies in your pet deck, Gristlebrand?
No. But there are versions where it plays Living End, As Foretold, Electrodominance, and Goro's Vengeance, Gristlebrand.
Okay, in that version. Okay, I'm just scanning your pet deck right now on Goldfish and seeing, I think the same guy doing well, Winged Hussar.
Yeah, I talked to him a lot. I think it's good right now, but for the first time since I've started playing Magic, there's a new toy that I want to experiment with. So Electrodominance has my attention. Or if I'm feeling spiky and net decky, I'm gonna play Dredge probably.
All right, because it seems like he's adopted, and people are adopting his list of having full play set of Discovery Dispersal, right?
Hey man, that was mine, but it was a logical conclusion to get to. The card is very good. It does everything you want.
All right. Andy, there wasn't any Electrodominance at the GP for Toronto, right?
Not that I saw.
There were
Right.
a few day 2 tournament reports on Reddit because the Channel Fireball list, day 2 list, wasn't complete, and I saw at least 2 of them, and people are talking about it. So let's give it time. I'm confident that it'll be a very good deck.
I like that. I like that. Andy, I know you put in a lot of time in Standard, and I think when I asked you last time, you said you also drafted a lot. Is that true?
Nope, I've not drafted this set that much recently. Like I did at the very beginning of the format, but now I haven't drafted that much. I think I have not drafted enough.
It's just like being around. I forget which co-host it was then. I think around.
I think it might have been me, but it's been like an actual month or something since I've played any limited. That I forget.
I feel it was you, but just being around Robert Lombardi, and maybe we talked about this last show, but I don't think so. Good old original, one of the founders of First Strike, Rolo, and even I think Dave Rude was part of the conversation where they were lamenting how the format actually sucks and that enchantments are too powerful, and they wish, and all WotC had to do to fix the format was to print some sort of naturalize. And I don't know if you remember.
Now I remember. So like, so there's a bunch of just like very good enchantments in a lot of colors, and it's less colors than usual get a naturalize effect. There's like one in white that like lets you scry. There's Mortify, and like blue ain't got nothing, red ain't got nothing, green ain't got nothing. So these enchantments just get to stay in play, and that's a pretty big deal when they're as good as Ill-Gotten Inheritance, and the rare. Some of the rares are also just ridiculous. So it is a bit of a problem because Ill-Gotten Inheritance in particular is just obnoxious to play against it when you can't kill it. It's so much better than it looks, and it just kills you. It just puts this clock on the game. Like if all things being equal, you're dead, and that's a pretty powerful effect considering the damage matters so much in a bunch of the archetypes. Like Orzhov is like very good at like making the game last really long and draining you a couple times, and then Rakdos is like good at being aggressive and having the spectacle matter a lot. So like that card being a common, I believe, is the one that stands out the most as like the most oppressive to me because it's just it happens so often. You lose to it so much.
So you do agree it's one like the time you played, it's probably not a very good draft format. Is that your impression as well, or no?
I don't love it, but I haven't explored it enough recently to like hate it right now. I think there's a pretty low cost. There should have just been like a couple more naturalizes, or like the card naturalizes. They reprint it half the time. Why not the one time they make a busted enchantment at common?
I think if you can get away from the enchantment issue, the format's fine. Like if you take a look at the 9-0 deck lists from GP Strasbourg this weekend, or the 3-0 draft decks, like they look like normal draft or limited archetypes, and then you see the random deck with 2 ill-gotten, whatever it's called, or the absolution card, and the rest of the deck is just like medium cards, and they obviously like won because of those cards, right? But then there's like red-green decks that are aggro, and there are black-white decks that don't have those cards that are grindy, and blue-white flyers sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. From what I've seen, the format's pretty meh, and you just want to open one of those enchantments.
Well, let's just hope our boy Elliot opens some sweet enchantments, I guess. I mean, let's see what else happened in the news. There's I don't want to talk too much finance because I don't know enough to know the implications, but one of the bigger news is the no more MSRP news. I'm not personally sure. Blake Rasmussen posted the article. He's the guy that gave me the exclusive preview cards. Starting with War of the Spark. Moving forward, Wizards of the Coast will no longer be giving Magic products at manufacturers' suggested retail prices or MSRPs. We're making this change to streamline our communications around new products. MSRPs are not favored in many parts of the world, which led to some confusion among our global player base. As Magic becomes more and more global, it makes less and less sense to suggest a retail price. Don't worry, this isn't some big disruption to our products or the company. We believe the elimination of MSRP will simply help us communicate better to our players in the places where those players shop. You'll see this change go into effect immediately with War of the Spark, which you can view a teaser trailer for now. I'm actually not really sure what the implications will be, and but it seems like the Reddit, early Reddit, is that it's really bad news.
Yeah, I saw. So my initial take was I couldn't care less that this announcement happened, but then I saw some worried store owners just saying like the first store that hikes up like the price of their cards up way above what MSRP used to just looks really bad, even though it's just like their regular markup that they had to not mark up as high because they would look bad because of MSRP being so close to their cost. So they're saying that the negative is that like the first store that sets the price where they should be based on the margins they make on these type of products are going to look like dicks because they hike up the price really high and then everyone follows suit. But it's just something that sort of should have been happening the whole time, but they couldn't because MSRP being so close to the cost would make them look bad. So if you're like, oh, MSRP is $4, they charge $7. People are like, what the hell? What's the point of this MSRP if you're going to charge me $7? But now companies are going to look bad if they try to make the markup.
Isn't this just like really good for people purchasing? Like, doesn't that just mean that people who have enough money for purchasing power are in a better position? You know what I mean? Like, if MSRP on a pack is $5 and the store charge is $5.50, and somebody says I want to pay $5.50 for a pack, then there's no MSRP, right? Like the actual value of a pack isn't already dictated. It could go the other way also, where stores are just like the only way you're getting packs is if you're paying $10 and they're only worth $3. So I don't know.
Stores make so little off of boost like sealed product that I'm sure their appetite is to make more. And I think a lot of what the store owners are saying is they wish that they hiked up MSRP one time and then said no more MSRP. That's what the conclusion of my findings on the internet have been of people's complaints, because I was desperately trying to find a reason why this mattered.
I remember when Master Sets came out and the MSRP was like $150 and you saw stores selling them for like $225. There's people like MSRP is only $150. Why would you charge $225? And then you had people doing like the EV breakdown. The EV breakdown was like $250 per box. And then okay, it's okay for the stores to charge this because the EV of the set is X, right? Which is more than what they're charging. But like the MSRP was just completely useless and was just a complaint point for people, right? Like if you don't want to spend X dollars on something when it's like X times 2, then just don't do it. You know what I mean? To me, it doesn't matter. And I think that people just like to complain about random stuff. But I don't know. If this means the stores can have more money in their pocket to stay open and run more events, yeah, you know what? Let them charge the extra $2 for packs or whatever. I'm not going to be buying them.
Yeah, I'm quickly scanning through the Reddit thread, and one of the most liked comment is the fact that WotC's doing it so that people don't complain about them. And they say shops set their own prices. Nothing we can do about that. And to continue what Annie said, like someone's like saying RIP, RIP, LGSs. If Wizards isn't setting a price, Amazon's going to be the lowest by a lot. I don't think this is from LGS greed or anything either. The reality is that Amazon can afford to take that loss and take smaller margins to ensure they get all of the business, whereas most LGS are already selling closer to cost just to try and remain relevant. So I guess that sounds like a downside for some LGSs. So I don't know. I'm intrigued how this will play out.
I was actually I was thinking about that the other day because I remember the Amazon thing and how people said like, and with the pre-TQ thing going away, like the whole idea of local game stores is sort of like falling by the wayside unless you're already an established game store that's like hosting 3Ks weekly or have Sunday showdowns like face-to-face Toronto or like the face-to-face game series across Canada sort of thing, right? Like face-to-face isn't going to fall because of these like Amazon things because they're already big established stores. It's more of like the local stores. But to me, like maybe those local stores like shouldn't have been open in the first place from like a economic standpoint. You know what I mean? I know it sounds very harsh, but a lot of businesses just don't stay open past their first year. And if they do, they're either extremely successful or they fall by the wayside quickly after. And I think like this is just another sort of shove in that direction. And maybe it turns out to be really bad and capitalist, just selling your product to Amazon. But it could also just like get rid of all the bad stores and bad experiences that people are having. Like I remember going to pre-TQs and there's a lot of disgusting bathrooms and just generally ugly stores that I don't think should have been open, but were because it was the only one in the area and people were just going to put minimum effort in and charge hand over fist for these Magic cards, right? So I hope it sort of like solves itself, sort of gets rid of those bad parts, but it probably won't because nothing ever goes right.
Yeah, I'm honestly I'll take care of any of the financial stuff for Face, so it's face-to-face game, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out for us, but yeah, well, I think we'll be fine. Well, that does it for this show, and to support the show, just make sure to like, subscribe the video, or just subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. Some of you listen through different mediums, but I think the best way, and there's just many free podcast apps on Apple, on Android, and they honestly make podcasting listening a lot easier. In fact, now even Spotify, which a lot of you use, now supports a lot of podcasts, and our podcasts are on Spotify. So it's a perfect way to have all your music and all your podcasts in the same place. And podcasts are awesome. Not just this show, but there's non-Magic shows that you can listen to. And I don't know if Andy watches or listens, but I love First Take, which is what the show's based on, and that's definitely on my podcast app, my Android podcast app, Pocket Casts. That also has you have to pay for it, but I think it's at the time it was a few dollars. I think it's a few dollars still now, and there's a desktop version.
It's like $5, yeah. It's great.
Highly recommended. It's got a desktop version that's awesome. So when I'm on the computer, perfect to rewind or whatever. It's just a perfect app. And but anyways, there's many choices for other platforms as well. Wishing our boy Elliot luck. Okay, any shout outs or things you want to announce, Andy? Let's start with you.
Shout outs. Shout out to Elliot, who I think will do well at his first Mythic Championship, despite his anxiety over his deck decision. I think he'll do well.
John, anything? You forgot to mention Mono Red.
What?
You forgot to mention Mono Red Living Again, I think, is what you said in the chat.
Oh, yeah. No. Just wanted to mention that the Modern Challenge and the Modern PTQ online were both won back-to-back days by the same guy. It was on Death Shadow Zoo, so congrats to him. It's a very rogue deck, but it has its place in the meta. Shout out to our boy Elliot. He seemed very worried, but he's a very good player, and I'm sure he'll figure it out. And just for anyone playing the Modern PTQ this weekend, a sneaky choice would be blue-white control with main deck Rest in Peace and Terminus. I think it's very good. in this current inbred modern meta. So go get him.
Just quick before I go to Derek, is there any big change in this Death Shadows? I'm trying to pull it up. Is this Lalo WBA guy?
Yes, it's more zoo than like a Tempo, like a Stubborn Deny or a Traverse the Ovenwald. It's like more of a. It plays more like Infect with mutagenic growth, Swift Spear with the prowess, and the Tamer Battle Rage. It's very aggressive.
I felt like
it's almost exactly Death Shadow when Gataxian Probe was legal, before everyone realized how to make it good.
I thought this was like what LSV at one point played, Andy. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I thought it was underwhelming.
Yeah, it's almost like card for card, just like a list from 2016 or whatever.
Yeah, and it turned out not to be that good after a while. So
no one's played it since,
and somehow it's crushed.
If this isn't proof that Modern is an awful format, I don't know what is. When some random picks up a deck from 3 years ago and just runs 2 Modern events into the ground because nobody knows what's going on. You just put Path Exile in your deck and you can't lose to this deck.
I mean, this deck never beats Blue-White X or a Green-Black X, but no one's playing those, so good for him.
Probably can't beat Burn either.
I just remember trying this in 2016. I thought it was fine and not good. So
Merfolk won a GP, you know?
Okay, that's
so did Elves.
So did Scred.
Yeah. Modern.
That right there is just the most perfect thing I've ever heard. Merfolk won a GP. So did Scred. So did Elves. So did 2016 Death Shadow in 2019.
Don't want to be good at Magic? Just play Modern. Woo!
I'll have to reg that deck. Call it Death Shadow 2016. Yeah, I still remember our Nikachu was tweeting out that he was providing updates. He couldn't make it to the GP in Toronto, providing updates for the Merfolk list. And I don't think those guys did very well. Derek, any last words?
Shout out Elliot, obviously, but shout out another friend of mine, Alex. It's also his first Pro Tour. He actually won a Moto PTQ to qualify for Cleveland, and then managed to top 8 GP Montreal less than a month later. So I think that like he's really on right now, and him and we all know of Randall, who played on the Canadian national team. They're from my hometown. Those 2 guys are like really killing it for people who don't play as much Magic as most. So hope those guys do well. Cleveland's going to be sweet. It's going to be the first event with the GP at it. So I can imagine some really cool, innovative stuff coming out. And they released pictures of the coverage team. Looks like Wizards is hopefully really going out all out for this one. Maybe showing us, the viewers, what we really want from the GPs and all those announcements that we've been looking for. So I'm optimistic. I'm hoping that I don't get let down, because I don't know how much more I can get let down. I may be able to say a lot of rotten things about Wizards that I've been holding in, but we'll wait and see. I'm excited. I love Pro Tours. It's some of the best coverage.
You can't do that, man. If you want to be invited to a Mythic Championship someday, it's definitely invited. I think they show that nice image they made of all the commentators and all the people on the coverage team, and I feel like you're right. I think the point's going to be like the response they're hoping to get would be like, oh, so that's what they're doing. That's what they're prepped for. So I actually expect not to be let down. I expect to be, that's my prediction, pleasantly surprised.
Like, honestly, for my sanity and their sanity, I hope they don't let us down, because I am nowhere near as bad as any Magic the Gathering Reddit page. And I think that there's going to be some serious uproar on the internet if things are not going well. Call it a loose prediction, but I think that might be what happens. So for everybody's sake, I hope that it goes swimmingly.
John, you as well? I think this is the first time I'm going to be hyped for coverage in a long time. So hope they pleasantly surprised me from the get-go, as I'll be tuning in from the start.
Same here.
Can you imagine watching coverage not on mute? This would be such a lovely experience. I hope it's great.
What, you watching on mute?
All the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, for GPs I do. For Pro Tours I don't. I don't know. Pro Tours are different. They have the neat little videos. They have like the walk the planes. They get to like go to these people testing houses.
They got that transition now. Do you remember when they went from the full battlefield to just the one person attacking? I'll never forget the transition.
I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but I'm sure this is tongue in cheek somehow.
No, it's not. This actually happened at the last Pro Tour, and it was cool.
Okay. Well, y'all can catch me at the next Pro Tour. That's the one that matters. Catch me with the queen holding the trophy.
All right. For the rest of the guys, I didn't play it, but to support the show, go to patreon.com/firststrike, and we will see you next week as we talk about the results and hopefully Elliot's awesome finish. Bye, guys.